never in our history has the pace of change been this rapid. I mean, it's insane.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook, presented by Forder and Details Interactive. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. Today's guest has built 2 very different companies to 2 very different exits. A video game studio he sold to Electronic Arts for $860 million, and a luxury candy brand he grew from an idea on a date night into a national retail presence. Josh Resnick is co-founder and general partner of OpenSky Ventures, and he spent his career figuring out what makes a brand or a business worth building and worth buying. Today, we get into how a childhood spent selling lemonade in Malibu turned into a career at Activision, why he walked away from Hollywood-style entertainment to sell candy, and what he's now looking for as an investor betting on the next generation of consumer brands. If you've ever wondered what it takes to build a company twice and get it right both times, this show is for you. Before we get started, a quick thank you as always to Max Branstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Welcome to the Marketing Playbook Podcast. My guest today for episode 151 is Josh Resnick. Josh is co-founder and general partner of OpenSky Ventures, an early-stage venture capital firm investing in disruptive startups shaping the future of commerce. He also manages a personal portfolio of more than 50 consumer and technology companies through his family office, Pure Imagination Brands. Josh is a 2-time exited founder. In 2012, he co-founded Sugarfina, the luxury confections brand named one of Fast Company's world's 50 most innovative companies. Earlier in 1998, he co-founded iconic video game developer Pandemic Studios, which was acquired by Electronic Arts for $860 million. Josh has been recognized on Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People, Goldman Sachs' 100 Most Intriguing Entrepreneurs, and .LA's Top LA Angels. He earned his MBA from the Wharton School and lives in LA. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you've got an awesome background, some really big companies. We were talking before we started about Sugarfina and its contribution to the cavities that I probably have. I've eaten my share of Sugarfina candy. So let's start where we always do on the show, Josh. Let's talk about your first story, where you grew up, your upbringing, and what might have been influential in helping develop the career that you have established.
Yeah, you got it. Again, really happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me. I grew up in Malibu, so native Californian. My dad was a dermatologist before that was a cool profession to be in. And my mom was kind of ahead of her time as an archaeologist. And I think from like age 8, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I maybe didn't understand that term really closely back then, but I knew I was a hustler and I just loved, making up products, selling them, and just all the kind of hustle involved there. So I remember when I was 8, I wanted an ice cream sundae really badly. My allowance didn't cover it. And my mom said, well, go out and earn the money, and then you can have your ice cream sundae. And so my career as a founder started with a quintessential lemonade stand in my neighborhood. And then I graduated mostly to other food concepts. Like I started selling chocolate chip cookies on the beach in Malibu. And I was the first person at my high school to contract out with other food suppliers to deliver lunches to campus. And, I just went from one business to another with kind of food as the thread line. And as you mentioned, I, then went and tried to actually get educated on business at the Wharton School, and then after that, I started my career in video games. So, but I don't want to jump too far ahead.
No, that's great. A thread of sugary foods. You were itching to get the ice cream at 8 years old, right?
That's right. That's right. That was the through line.
So let's jump. You mentioned video games. Guide us on where in your life your start of the video game love was.
Yeah, so from a really early age, when the personal computer was, first invented and, some of the consoles started coming out, it was prime time for me, being a young kid and adopted them right away and was just basically playing games my whole life. I didn't know at first that my passion for video games and my passion for being an entrepreneur would come together, but coming out of business school, I didn't want to take the normal route most MBAs did. I didn't want to join a corporate finance team or a marketing department or go to Wall Street. But I wanted to follow a passion. And my two passions at the time in my 20s were video games and playing tennis. Pretty quickly ascertained I was not going to have a career as a professional tennis player. And so I sent my resume to every video games company on the planet, and Activision was the only one that got back to me and gave me a shot.
How does curiosity play a role in being an entrepreneur?
I think it's everything. You have to be really in tune to so many things. Why do people consume what they do? What is the difference between a must-have product and a nice-to-have product? What is it about certain brands that create that emotional connection to you so that you want to choose the one brand or another? Walking down a retail aisle, what stands out to you and why? Having that kind of openness and curiosity is essential in kind of discovering patterns and seeing something that maybe people might overlook. And that's where the best opportunities are.
So you have this love of video games, and Activision, responded to you. So what was that first gig like?
Oh, it was incredible. I was in heaven, honestly. I knew nothing about video games. And honestly, Activision was pretty young at that time. I think I was employee number 48, reporting directly to Bobby Kotick, the CEO of the company. And they were looking for people like me that actually didn't have a background in video games, which is kind of unusual. So they went on a hiring spree, hiring architects, public defenders, MBAs, people who had a passion for the sector, but weren't bringing in any preconceived notions of how to go about making video games. I think they were just looking for, to your point, curious, passionate, smart people who can come in and, solve problems and get really creative. And so they started me as an associate producer at first, put out a couple of titles, and then I got my first lucky break at Activision, working on a really big franchise there as a producer.
And in an environment, I'm not a video game,
Mm.
guy, at least not any longer. How are you thinking about what the next best video game is? Is it, understanding, what the culture is like today and what might resonate with people? How does that happen? The storytelling.
For me, back then, at that particular moment, we were at a big inflection point where games were about to go from 2D graphics to 3D graphics. So the processing power was getting faster and faster. Actually, NVIDIA back then was pretty solely focused on video game graphic cards. And I happened to get to Activision at a time when we were making that big transition over. And the game I was a producer on was called MechWarrior 2, and it was bringing to life these futuristic giant robot killing machines. And we were successful at turning that into a 3D game versus a 2D game. And we were all we were video gamers. Everyone there loved video games. So it was really going on gut instinct on what sounded fun to us to play. So we had the license to the MechWarrior, universe through FOSSA, and the thought of going to battle with these huge, two-legged, fighting machines were just sounded awesome to us. So maybe a teeny bit less emphasis on the story at that point and more just on the graphical fidelity of having that kind of open-ended battlefield between these different, giant robot creatures that you can outfit with different rockets and lasers and fun things like that.
And how did Pandemic Studios come to be? The name, I went back and looked at the year, that this was all developed way before.
way before the real pandemic.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. The name did not age well at all, first to admit that, but we were just looking for something really cool sounding. The name Epidemic was taken, and so we just kind of jumped up a level to Pandemic, and it lent itself to some really cool, edgy graphics. We had this kind of, turn of the 1920s gas mask logo, which is really fun, and really kind of strong colors of neon yellow and black. And the way that came about is after MechWarrior 2's success, I then became a director, a creative director. I then rised up through management to manage many other projects. And one of the directors I was managing had notified Activision that he wanted to leave the company, but he still wanted, and he created his own studio, but he still wanted to work with Activision. And we realized, hey, this is probably not going to be a one-off situation. We might have other top talent wanting to leave and strike it out on their own. How about we create a avenue for them to do that and still stay within the kind of the Activision universe versus going to our competitors? I was tasked with negotiating the exit with that person. He co-opted me in our first meeting, and then we went back to Activision management and said, "Hey, how about if we take two teams out instead of one, work on two IPs instead of one? It'll be a stronger studio." And our thesis was we could make better games, faster games, and cheaper games if we were doing it outside of the corporate culture at Activision and as an independent studio instead. And to Activision's credit, they agreed. And not only did they agree, they gave us a wonderful start. They allowed us to take all our equipment out, all the technology we had developed there to use it, to work on two sequels to our existing IPs, which is, a lot easier transition. And then they even, wrote us a check and invested some money in the new entity. So it was a really wonderful start to our company.
This episode is brought to you by Forder, and they've got something worth hearing about. There's a conference coming up in New York on October 14th called Impact, and I'll actually be there. So if you're planning to attend, I'd love to connect in person. It's built for e-commerce leaders navigating AI, agentic commerce, and the very real pressure on margins right now. Practical conversations, senior people, real challenges to solve. If you want to go, and I think you should, there's a promo code that gets e-commerce leaders like you in for free. Just head to forder.com/impact and use the code PLAYBOOK, all lowercase, at checkout. That's forder.com/impact, and the code is PLAYBOOK, PLAYBOOK, all lowercase. Enjoy the conference. So you had a period there, and there's so much in your career that I want to get to. So you had a period there. Then there was a sale to Electronic Arts. And, we talked in the opening about the amount of money that was exchanged there. But leave that out for a second. You built this baby.
Mhm.
How was it to sell the baby?
I don't think in retrospect, there's always a lot of challenges in selling your baby. When I broke away from Activision, I then had a 12-year run building an amazing culture, amazing base of talent, and just some wonderful intellectual property at Pandemic, Star Wars Battlefront, and Mercenaries, and Destroy All Humans, and all those great IPs. But the reason we did it is EA we saw as having the potential to be an incredible partner for us. They can offer us a ton of resources. They could open up, much larger distribution channels for us and just provide us with a lot of support and resources that as an independent studio, you just don't have access to. On top of that, John Riccatello was one of the general partners at the VC that had invested in us a couple years earlier, and he left to go, run EA again. And it just we trusted him. We had a great relationship with him. It just made a lot of sense for us to join EA at that time.
So you stayed as part of that organization for a period?
I did. I stayed on board for a couple of years, but it was a tough time. We got an incredible exit, but literally like 4 months later, we hit the 2008 recession, and EA shifted from a mindset of going to growth mode and investment mode into cutbacks. And so for the next 2 years, it was really tough because it was a totally different mindset than what we had signed up for. And also, I discovered I really didn't enjoy working for other people. I wanted to be my own boss. I enjoyed creating a more kind of nimble, flexible, richer culture, and it was harder to maintain that in a big public company type structure.
So, how do you go from video games to candy?
Yeah, not a lot of connection there. That really doesn't make a lot of sense. Other than both of them are somewhat addictive, video games and sugar. And I'd say the other through line is they both make people happy. But no, that was not an intentional pivot. Basically, I went on a date with my now wife. It was a third date with her, and we went and saw an outdoor showing of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And we emerged from that just being totally energized and questioning, getting back to your curiosity question, is why weren't there any candy concepts for adults? Everything was geared towards kids. All the ingredients were kind of crappy. And the experience of buying candy was not fun, actually, for kids or adults. You just walked into a store, shoveled candy out of a plastic barrel into a plastic bag, and you weighed it by the pound, and that was it. And we had done some traveling, a little bit of traveling. We had more travel ahead of us, where we discovered all these incredible, unique, beautiful artisan candy makers around the world that were creating candies that never made it to the US market because they were too small. Our realization was, hey, why don't we bring this to the US, create this beautiful bespoke brand, turn candy into a gifting moment again, and make adults feel like kids again, and make kids feel like adults with, the type of candies that we offer.
So, you created product and now you have to sell the product. And it seems like you chose the physical retail approach. So, talk a little bit about the channels that you went after and why one versus the other.
We actually started with ecom because it's the quickest way to spin up the concept, test that we had a product market fit, make sure that we were onto something. And we realized pretty quickly we were onto something, which was great. And it was from there we evolved to wholesale. We got discovered by Nordstrom's, for example, the senior exec there. They wanted us in all our stores. And then we decided to take our chance with retail. We opened up our first store in Beverly Hills and it took off immediately. And then we went to corporate gifting, and then we went to international. So it was kind of a progression and evolution that took us from ecom to all those other channels. And ultimately, we just wanted to be where our shoppers were. If they were online, we were there. And if they wanted to be at a mall or in their neighborhood, they can find us at a retail store or a wholesale park.
As somebody that started those two businesses, there's others, perhaps later in your career, but you started those two businesses. Similarities in getting started with each of them?
Yeah, I mean, the two businesses are frankly pretty different, and they had different journeys for how they got there and how we kind of gathered the resources together. But I'd say something that connected them the most and has just been an enduring lesson for me over time is just emphasis on the right talent, on people, on creating a culture and an environment that attracts the best talent, retains the best talent, really enables them to do their best. Where they want to come to work every day. At Activision, even before pandemic, I saw that where everyone had a choice every single morning, do they come into work or not? And at pandemic, because we had limited resources compared to our competitors, I wanted to create a culture where they really wanted to come in and they had fun and they felt like they could do their best work. And I carried that over to Sugarfina too. Lots of other retail opportunities, a lot of other great brands out there. Why should they work for Sugarfina? It's because they really enjoyed the people there. They felt like they could grow, they can learn, they can be their best selves, and they can really enjoy their work. That was the through line between the two concepts that enabled our success.
Do you ever think about, and we'll talk maybe about AI in some other context, do you ever think about what you would have been able to do perhaps at either of those two companies had you had some of the tools that are available now?
Oh my God. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, AI. I mean, yes, we're going to talk about AI later, but honestly, that's the massive, force multiplier. I could have been way more profitable, way more nimble, move faster, I could have understood my customers so much better if I could had a handle on all the data that I was gathering, both at Pandemic Studios and at Sugarfina. We had so much data, and it was so hard to extract all the valuable nuggets we needed to understand our customers better, the behaviors better, everything. So I could have been faster. I could have had better profit margins, and I could have further improved my connection to my customers if I had the AI tools that our founders in our portfolio have today. It's night and day difference.
What was your exit like at Sugarfina? How long were you there, and what happened at the end when you left?
Yeah, Sugarfina, I was there for 7 years. It was a fairy tale beginning and middle. So the first 5 years, we could barely hold. We were doubling and tripling every year. It was nuts and so much fun. And first 5 years, I didn't have to spend a dime on marketing. It was just word of mouth. It was like check, check, check in terms of all the ideal things you look for to have a thriving business. And at the very end, I had to take in some, growth capital from a VC, which is ironic that I'm telling this story. And that put an even greater emphasis on kind of unbridled growth and just move super fast, grow, grow, grow. We'll deal with profits later. And Sugarfina turned out to be a way more complex business to run than a video games company, which is not always obvious to everybody, but we had dozens of suppliers around the world. We had a very manual way of putting our candy into our packaging. The costs were high. We had too many SKUs. A lot of things were going on. And that complexity kind of over time kind of created this debt, I guess, logistics debt at the company. And it all caught up with us, in Christmas, just before we exited the company. And that put pressure on cash. And at the end of the day, we had to sell the company at a discount to a local family office. Not a fairy tale ending, but the brand still exists today. It's thriving. I'm so proud of what I accomplished that it's still a feel-good story for me.
Absolutely, that's great. The devil is in the details. You probably have heard that phrase time and time again in your professional life. Projects get started with great intentions, but you no longer have the time to pay attention to the little things that could make the difference between success and failure. At Details Interactive, you can discuss your business with a seasoned direct-to-consumer marketing executive who's helped launch and grow web businesses and integrate multi-channel marketing initiatives. Learn more at detailsinteractive.com. So tell us about OpenSky and what that business is.
Yeah. So the in between pandemic and Sugarfina, I was doing a ton of angel investing. I created my own family office. I found that I had a knack for it. I really enjoyed it. And I had just put to bed two huge companies and brands. And frankly, I needed a breather. And I was looking for a way to still be in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I felt through venture, I could give back to the community. I could take all my years of experience, both good and bad, and help other founders out so that they had an even better journey. And also, I felt like I'd come up with a good thesis, which was the intersection between consumer brands and the tech stack that they need to, grow and thrive online. And that's how OpenSky came about. I had a really good friend who was also a founder, also did a lot of angel investing with me, Josh Payne, who you've interviewed, and we both were transitioning out of our companies at the same time. We were both angel investing together. We both shared this love for, e-commerce and how it meets, how it connects with real brands. And that's how OpenSky came about.
Has anything changed, when you started that business to today? Do you evaluate the founders, the business thesis that you might be investing in? Have those attributes changed at all for you?
No, some things remain the same. Like when we're looking at founders, we're looking at founders that have a lot of conviction, that are passionate, that bring unfair advantage, to the table. Something in their past experience or whatever, or subject matter expertise. We're looking for good people. All those things are the same from 2022 when we started Fund One to where we are today, raising for Fund Two. But I would say there's a couple of nuances there or new things. One, You can't have a casual relationship with AI. You really have to have a strong connection to how you integrate AI into your daily routine as a CEO of a startup. It can't be casual. It has to be really intentional. So we look for that, founders who are really, really comfortable using those tools and integrating into everything that they do. And the second thing is, I'd say, with the changes in OS 14 and all the other pressures that are facing brands today, you need to be an amazing storyteller, even more so than a few years ago. And you almost have to be half content production house to get your story across. And so we're looking for founders who are exceptional storytellers and know how to connect with customers in a way that customers want to keep coming back time and time because there's thousands of brands out there they can choose from. Why should they choose yours over any other?
So I think the thesis of OpenSky is the future of commerce. So are you focused on companies that are selling consumer products to an end consumer? Are there also, SaaS providers and other types of providers in the mix as well?
Both. So when I talk about the intersection of brands and their tech stack, it's that exactly. It's physical goods, so food and beverage goods, health and wellness good, home lifestyle goods, pet goods, so CPG, products, physical products. And then the companies making those products, we then focus the second part of the fund on the technology layers they need to optimize their operations, to grow their revenues, to have a deeper connection with their customers, to create all that content that we were talking about. So all that layers of tech that enable them to run successful brands. And that's our focus on those two areas.
With the technology changing so much, when you look at a technology, player that could be part of a stack, how do you get a sense, how do you get some comfort that it might be good for today, but has legs for the future, even though you don't know what the tech is going to be in a year or two or three? I'm thinking in some of the businesses that I'm involved with, we see things come across and they make total sense. But I have pause because I wonder, will something come out right on its heels in because the AI capability is just changing so fast?
Honestly, I'm not going to have a great answer for you. It is super tough to be able to, crystal ball it. And the reason is, never in our history has the pace of change been this rapid. I mean, it's insane how quickly things are changing and the newness is coming. It used to be over 100 years, and then maybe it went to a decade, and then a few years, and now it's honestly feeling like we're getting down to a period of months where things are changing so rapidly. So it's a challenging time to be both a founder and an investor. One thing that gives some great foundation for a fund is the consumer side in some ways, because that won't change. People need food to eat. They need beverages to drink. They need, nutritional supplement. There's physical things that people need in their lives. Technology, also an integrated part of their lives too, but that's that area of change that's moving at that so fast that it's hard to know. And it's platform risk is the thing I'm always afraid of. So, we're investing in technology on the Shopify platform or on the TikTok platform or Amazon platform or on the as layers on top of these big LLMs like, Claude and ChatGPT. And those platforms are kind of gobbling up the layers above them. It's like there was tons of entrepreneurs in the early iOS days that would come out with a calculator app or a flashlight app, and they'd make millions of dollars. And then Apple just one day wakes up and goes, "Oh, we'll just include that all for free." That's what the LLMs are doing right now, and that's what other platforms are doing too. So what we're trying our best to do is divine what will be gobbled up or what will be left alone. And is this entrepreneur and the vision and the product or the service that they're offering or the technology unique enough? Or are they moving quickly enough to stay one step ahead? And is it such an important must-have thing for companies to have that they can succeed? But it's hard.
I'm lucky, the listener of this show. We have people that are senior in their career, like you, and then I do a lot of early stage advising for people coming out of college or earlier in their career. And one of the things that I hear all the time, and really would like your thoughts here, is how should I be thinking about my career? I might have wanted to do X, but I'm afraid X is not going to be there, in a short period of time. I'm sure you must get folks asking similar questions.
Yeah, that's also tough too, and I agree with them. Again, this rapid change is gobbling up careers and making them obsolete. I wouldn't want to be a new graduate coming out and joining the field of consulting, as an example, or the legal profession or accounting. So many of these are going to get deeply, overrun by really effective AI tools. But where I always start with everybody I talk to, where I'm in a similar position giving advice, is what makes you happy? What feels fulfilling? What gives you joy? What makes you tick? What is that you feel like you can realize the most fulfilling expression of yourself? And if it happens to be one of those fields where it might be under pressure, that's still okay. It's not going to go away entirely. You can still be a part of that 20% group that is still able to thrive and advance and do something. And what you're going to count on is you're never just going to be static. You're going to evolve as the technology evolves and the times evolve and the needs evolve, and you'll be able to adapt along the way. But if that's truly your passion, I wouldn't try to crystal ball it, and I would still follow where that takes you.
Pure imagination brands. How is that the same or different than how you manage OpenSky?
So my pure imagination brands is my personal family office, and I'm just using personal funds to write angel checks into other companies, and that was more driven by emotion and instinct. Becoming a VC, where I'm now deploying other people's capital, and they're trusting me with that responsibility to return that capital and a multiple of it in a relatively short period of time. I have to take a more disciplined approach. And that's fine. And that's how it should be. So I'll be even more thoughtful. I'll do even deeper research. I'll consult many more subject matter, experts, and I will try to do a better job of, reading the tea leaves to see where trends are going, where markets are going, versus going off gut. And I'm not saying gut instinct is still not an important part of what I bring to the table as a VC. It is, but I just need to be way more disciplined in adding in all those other layers to that decision. And then it helps to then also have a team behind me with Josh Payne and Stephanie as another team member to help validate, all of that thought that goes into it versus my family office. It's a team of one.
Team of one. You're talking to yourself. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
When founders, come to you, they're looking for investment either through OpenSky or through your family office. How do you help to counsel them for what they really need in their business? Because sometimes I'm sure you might like the idea, but they're not ready. Or they might be ready, but they don't really know how much they need in order to get off the ground. Is there a counsel that you're able to provide?
Yeah, and fortunately, because I've been in their shoes before, I think I can give them pretty good advice. Are they the right person? They might have a great idea, but they might not be the right person to execute that idea. Or maybe in part they are, but they need to add another team member. Or there's not a big enough market for that idea. Like they might come to me with the best recipe for a pepita nut butter. And it could be the best. And based on grandma's recipe, and everyone in the family loves it, and it tastes great, and they can bring their costs down. But there's not a big enough market there. So it'll never get past the farmer's market level. So I think I could be really helpful, and not in a way where I discourage them to be an entrepreneur, but just to help them really think it through. Because once you commit, it really is, it's a second marriage. It's such a big commitment. And I can help them go through that thought process as a founder, someone who might put myself in their shoes to execute on the idea. But then I'll also come in as an investor because ultimately, You need to be able to raise enough capital to be able to compete effectively to be successful. And understanding how an investor thinks, what they look for, I openly share with them as well, whether or not I invest or not. I want them to walk away feeling like they're a little bit smarter because of our interaction.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, boy, we need to get him on Shark Tank and you can sit alongside Mr. Wonderful.
Sure. I can learn a lot from Mr. Wonderful too. Yeah, I love a Shark Tank.
What's next for you, Josh?
Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. I had my founder's, journey. I've now been investing for a really long time and love it, and I will keep doing so. But I also love the idea of becoming a founder again. And interestingly, I think it will make me a better investor. And continuing to be an investor and being active with that lens will make me a better founder. So right now, I have a third big vision that I'm working on. But it's still in stealth mode. I'm going to be more ready to talk about it early next year. And if you want to have me back on a podcast, I'd love to share it with you. But it's in the health and wellness sector.
Okay, great. Well, I'd love to have you back and you
Thank
can
you.
take it out of stealth whenever you're ready.
Great. Great.
Well, amazing career. Thank you for sharing with us. We are down to the end of the show. We do a 2-minute drill, 7 questions, 1-word answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. A brand that you admire or that inspires you.
Liquid Death.
Favorite app on your phone.
Claude.
Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from.
Goal Zero. I'm buying Burning Man supplies right now, and they they sell solar equipment.
Something that you're not good at but wish that you were.
Guitar.
Charitable organization that you're passionate about.
Tree people planting millions of trees in LA.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Compressed time.
And other than family, what's your most prized possession?
Do cats count, or are cats part of my family?
We hear cats and dogs all the time.
Well, cats or my kids' photos and letters they've written to me over the years.
Oh, that's nice. Josh, if people are interested in reaching out to you on social media, where could they do that?
LinkedIn is the best way to reach me.
Okay, great. Hey, this was really a good time. Thank you very much. Great career. I think we try and give our listeners 3 key takeaways to bring back to their personal and professional lives. I think you gave us way more than 3, so thank you for that.
Same. Thanks, and can't wait to pick up this convo again whenever.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Josh Resnick for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, culture. Josh built video games and luxury candy, 2 businesses with almost nothing in common on the surface. But he said the real skill he took from one to the other was building a culture that attracts and keeps great people. Whatever you're building, that's the piece that everything else depends on. And number 2, sometimes the hardest part isn't building the business, it's scaling the capital behind it. Josh was candid that Sugarfina's first 5 years were rocket fuel growth on word of mouth alone. But it was the growth capital that introduced the complexity that eventually led to a discounted sale. Fast growth and healthy growth aren't always the same thing, and it's worth asking which one you're actually chasing. And number 3, don't try to predict the technology. Evolve with it. Josh's advice for early career professionals wasn't to guess where AI or any other trend is headed. It was to stay close to your passion and be willing to adapt as the tools around you change. The winners aren't the ones who called it first. They're the ones who stayed flexible. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.